Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and tonight we are going on a nice evening bombing run on the metaphysical plane, a nice little offensive action, because, this is Mango at war now, and I'm having a great time. The lines have been drawn, and, now we're just going to go for it. So basically we're starting just where we left off with the vaccine issue and SB 276, right? The fire is not going out, it's just building bigger and bigger. As I said before, this is backfiring on them. They thought that they'd just be able to have a nice little bill that they'd sweep through and they'd get rid of the last few anti-vaxxers, and yeah, there would be a little bit of protest, but not anything they couldn't handle with their media control. And of course it's California, so everybody already agrees with them anyway, because it's all locked up blue, right? And well, people are having some very wonderful reactions. I've seen a lot like this one right here for this tweet. For those who think the opposition will die down now that SB 276 has passed, you have just created a movement where parents will make it their life's mission to fight against you and for medical freedom. Hashtag get ready, hashtag we won't stand down, hashtag just the beginning, hashtag a new movement. A few snaps for that, Melissa. And a lot of others like this, of people who were liberal Democrats their entire life, are now just flipping and flipping hard to red and realizing that they've been voting for communists who don't believe that they have bodily autonomy. My body, my choice only applies if you're trying to kill an unborn child. It doesn't apply if you want to actually protect your living children outside of the womb from neurotoxic vaccine schedules recommended by the CDC. So here's, another one. Make California red again. We have walked away from the Democratic Party. They have shown themselves to be too corrupt to have seats across the nation. Hashtag vote red. All right, she's holding a sign that says, we will make California red to match the blood on your hands, right? People are not stoked about Dick Pan, and if he thinks he can get away with just crying racism and running away, well, as I said before, 2019 is the year when that shtick stops working. Not just for Pan, but for all the people screaming anti-Semite and all the people screaming racist and bigot and all the rest of it. It just doesn't work anymore. You've played your hand too many times, and we all know that basically it's bullshit, and it just doesn't work. It's the law of diminishing returns. There's only so many times you can use that shtick, especially in the age of information, before people start actually looking things up and calling you on your shenanigans, right? On the other hand, we have doctors, right, highly educated people coming out and also, joining the fight and standing by them. So here's this guy, Dr. Shiva Ayadurai. He says, I feel very bad for the truly compassionate, smart, and curious MDs who are being silenced by arrogant, dumb, and moronic ones. The MDs with a brain know the science of modern vaccines is flawed and must move out of the dark ages to the future of personalized and precision medicine. Absolutely. Anyone who doesn't see the human body as a unique, perfect structure that should be addressed on its own unique basis is someone who, again, is a communist, materialist-minded person who sees us all as just clay, as just this gray mass, this flesh for them to just, basically manipulate as they see fit. And a one-size-fits-all, like a factory conveyor belt, is, their modus operandi as far as medicine is concerned. One size fits all. Just give them a pill, give them surgery, give them a vaccine, right? But one thing they will never do, the average medical doctor, is actually listen to their patient and acknowledge what they're saying. The good doctors will, but again, the entire industry is co-opted by pharma, and the average medical doctor, the majority of them are just trained technicians by the American Medical Association, aka the Rockefellers, right? So they're just basically trained to issue the drugs that are being made by the different pharma cartels. That is their primary purpose, not to heal people, not to listen to them, not to actually solve diseases and cure things, just to treat with drugs, cut, poison, and burn, right? That's their only three modalities. And this is across the nation, right? Coast to coast. New York has got its whole thing going on. It's interesting how the synchronicity of California and New York, it literally is coast to coast, and they're pressing it on both ends of the country, and they're going to go for the middle. But, so they're basically protesting in New York. They kicked a whole bunch of these kids out of school because they weren't vaccinated, or they weren't, fully vaccinated according to the schedule. And so, yeah, basically they're protesting at the Board of Regents. They're like, well, you kicked all the kids out of school. Well, I guess we'll use our free day to go and protest you kicking them out of school. And so, yeah, people are like, segregation, education for all, or no segregation, yes, education for all, right? People in California and New York, we were forced to pay these excessive, onus of taxes, and now they're basically taking away even the few benefits that taxes supposedly provide. So it's just insane. And again, segregation, it would be one thing if they let kids go to private school, and I guess here I'm just talking about California, but it would be one thing if they let kids go to private school and just said, okay, the rule just applies to public school, and we could have our segregation. That would be one thing. But they've literally said, no, you can't go to a public school, you can't go to a private school, you can't go to a daycare, you can't go anywhere if you're not fully vaccinated. And we've done a lot of research. There's a whole bunch of movement building. Again, like I said, there's a confederation of parents that is organizing right now. Some of our close friends that we've met up here are part of that. And there are basically homeschooling charter schools where if your child goes beneath a certain threshold of days per week, it's not considered actually a school, and so it doesn't fall under the purview of SB 276. You can't ban my kid from the school because it's not technically a school. So that's another thing that we're looking into. And again, they can keep trying to tighten the noose and tighten the collar and the rope, but we're just going to keep finding loopholes. And if they want to crack down on just association of parents, just teaching kids outside extracurricular outside of the school, well, now they're basically really coming. That's the First Amendment protected right of free association, right? It's right there with speech. And if they want to take it to that level of tyranny, well, then now we're going to have a real state of Jefferson creation moment on our hands. And that'll be armed resistance type thing if they try and crack down on free association just to teach kids. That's when even the most calcified, lobotomized, liberal, progressive will look at this and say, whoa, is this really what we're doing? Right? And even as it is, this has bifurcated the blue team and the left between those who thought that, it was all about just caring for people, right? Like we all probably did at one point when we were more liberal-minded. And now they're realizing that they don't care about people, and it's split between the the neoliberal corporate basically progressive fascists and the communists, right? And then basically those people who were just kind of didn't really take an active role in politics, and to them the mask has been pulled off, and basically now they see who they're really dealing with. And basically it's just interesting, and I point this out for a very specific reason, but it truly is the battle between the children of God and the children of truth and the children of the lie, right? The children of God and the children of Satan, if you will, spoken another way. And one of the most stalwart groups of anti-vaxxers, of people who are hesitant to enact the whole vaccine schedule as the CDC recommends it, the neurotoxic child abuse schedule, is the Orthodox Jewish community of New York. And right here's a sycophantic, pathetic pseudo-article from Vox, right? What you'd expect from Vox. New York's Orthodox Jewish community is battling measles outbreaks. Vaccine deniers are to blame. That's not an editorial headline, right? That's totally news. And I'm not going to spare you the garbage of that article, but I just wanted to point this out, that one of the reasons this came to a head in New York is actually because of the Orthodox Jews who don't trust the pharmaceutical establishment, and they trust God, right? They believe that God created them perfect, and basically we'll use medicine, but we're not going to basically unnecessarily interfere in the body. And it's what I presume their position is. I don't know a whole lot about Orthodox Judaism, but basically I'll take it where it is. That's basically they are refusing the will of pharma, and basically it's why pharma is not very well liked right now, right? They are at the very bottom of U.S. industry rankings. So this is positive views, negative views, neutral, and the net spread. So the restaurant industry is the highest, right? People like restaurants. The computer industry, grocery industry, right? All these up here. Down here, second to last is the federal government, which is usually the very last. And that's at 25% positive, 23 neutral, and 52 negative, for a net spread of negative 27. And right down below it, the pharmaceutical industry has taken dead last for the first time. Negative or positive view 27%, neutral 15, and negative 58 for a spread of negative 31. Right? Everyone hates pharma right now, and for good reason. Right? Even the people who don't know a thing about the vaccine issue, right? They're not fond of their drugs being overcharged and overprescribed and whatnot. Nobody likes them because they're an objectively evil industry pretending to be our greatest savior. Right? There's literally not a single pharmaceutical that has been manufactured that I would really ever consider taking, and it's only people who don't know how the body actually functions who just get swept into this and take it as if it's the gospel truth. You can tell an illiterate person anything and they'll believe it because they don't have any way to verify what you're saying or contradict it. Right? And I'm pretty much the opposite of an illiterate person, and it's very easy for me to just tear all this propaganda to shreds. Right? And the opinions aren't helped by Purdue Pharmaceutical, the makers of OxyContin, and basically the purveyors of this whole opioid crisis. And not their purveyors, not like it was just then. They're part of a giant cartel, but they were literally the manufacturers of the drug, and now they've been taken to task for their role in the opioid crisis. They've been ordered to pay a $12 billion settlement. Right, let's see. Yeah, $12 billion over time. The Sackler family will give up control of the company, so the company is going to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and I think the family is also ordered to pay $3 billion from their own, but they made like $12 billion off of this drug. Like, they should take them down even more than that. Yeah, and basically no wrongdoing. They admitted no wrongdoing. So, it's a big settlement, but honestly, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't go far enough. And just like big tech, it's time for the the hammer of God to come down and smash these cartels into 1,000 little bitty pieces. And of course, the Sacklers, the family who ran Purdue Pharmaceutical, a good kind of snapshot of the different kind of people that we're dealing with here, right? They want to throw out this term anti-Semitic every time you talk, critically of Israel and their foreign policy. If you want to talk poorly of any rich Jewish person, right? Any Jewish billionaire, no matter how objectively evil they are, even if they're a rapist and a pedophile and basically all these horrible things, like objectively provably in court of law, they'll just basically, you'll have people defending them, like the ADL, right? To PewDiePie just yesterday when he was announcing his 100 million subscriber, unboxing of his YouTube play button, and he announced he was donating $50,000 to the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, also known as the Defamation League in more proper parlance. And then basically the entire internet exploded, saying, what are you doing? These are the guys who killed your deal with Disney. These are the guys who literally have been smearing you as an alt-right, neo-German National Socialist, if you know what I mean. And he basically, I guess somebody recommended to him, one of his sponsors on the video suggested, hey, we're a little concerned about your affiliations based on what the media is saying, so why don't you just make this donation to the ADL? And well, people have speculated a whole lot about the situation, and I'm not going to add on to that, but eventually PewDiePie, Felix Schellberg, basically said, okay, I hear what you guys are saying, I should have looked into this a little bit more, I'm not going to go through with the donation. And let me see if I can pull it up. Right, so here's PewDiePie's video where he goes on to apologize to everyone for making a ill-advised donation to the ADL without actually doing some research. Hard to believe that PewDiePie would not know who the ADL was, since they were the ones who torpedoed his deal with Disney. And either ignorantly or as a massive deep troll that nobody except for Sargon has picked up on, he's wearing a sweater with the Iron Cross on the collar, which people affiliate with the German military and specifically German National Socialism. So that's interesting that even the SJWs haven't quite picked up on. I don't know, it looks like there's Arabic on there too, but I don't know. If it is a deep troll, the man's a genius. I think he just put it on ignorantly, but who knows? Too much speculation for me right now. But anyway, moving on is This was one more tweet. Bob here tweeted, "Vaccines were the gateway rabbit hole for me realizing the depths of our government's corruption. What was your gateway rabbit hole?" And a lot of people said vaccines. Their kid got injured by vaccines, and they realize the depth of the lies that they've been told, and how sure they were that that narrative was correct, and then to have it just completely torn down by reality in a crushing vaccine injury for their child. But not everybody comes to the truth through that. I replied and said 9/11, right? Yesterday was the 18th anniversary of 9/11, and a lot of people are awake to what happened on 9/11. A lot of people are still asleep, but that's kind of where I'm going to transition here. And this might seem to be a totally different topic than the vaccines and whatnot, but it's really not. When you've listened long enough and you've really done the full scope of research, you'll understand that this is not a separate topic at all. This is the same topic, and it's the same people that we're talking about who control the information, in the media, and the people who control, key points of information transfer within the government and the social services, or the civil services rather, and the financial industry and banking and all the rest, right? So, the gateway to the truth, many people come through different ways, but essentially this is Dr. Judy Wood. Basically people were jumping out of the towers not because they just couldn't stand the smoke, but because they were basically being microwaved inside of these buildings. And there's so many strange things about what happened with this day and with these towers. And so this is Dr. Judy Wood's website. She is, we'll go through her bio in a second, but I just want to show you essentially a little slideshow that she put together. The towers did not burn up, nor did they slam to the ground. They turned mostly to dust in midair. And so what she's showing here is essentially these were 110-story skyscrapers. This is a tremendous amount of mass, right? A huge amount of mass. If these towers collapsed, there would be this giant pile of rubble and metal and debris down on the ground. But what she's showing here is essentially that there was not really, there's a pile here, but that pile of rubble for basically 110-story skyscrapers, that's nothing. That's nothing at all. So basically the towers essentially disappeared. They did not collapse. They did not just blow up, right? They turned to powder as they fell to the earth, right? The snowball, right? And as they kind of talked about in Loose Change, the pyroclastic flow, that these aren't just pancake collapsing straight down, it's exploding outward, and it's dust. It's not even large chunks. There's some chunks, but mostly this tower is being turned into powder. And, basically these jets are shooting out all the while. Right? What society thinks happened, fire. What truthers think happened, bombs. What really happened, dustification, is pulverization. The buildings straight up turned to powder. And not even explosives are capable of doing that. And here we have another photo of just the disintegration of the towers and how it's just basically just like evaporating, like straight up, what Thanos does to everybody in the Avengers. They just turn to dust and float away. Alright, here's more dustification, the process of turning a solid structure into powder in midair. And as many people have pointed out, it took only 10 seconds for the buildings to come down, which is basically free fall speed. If you dropped a bowling ball or a billiard ball off the top of the building, right, it would hit the ground basically in the same amount of time it took for those towers to come down, which, it basically implies that there was no resistance. The towers just ceased to exist, and that is incredible. That's not supposed to be possible in the physics that people have been told, right? Here again you see basically, there's stuff down here, but it's not a lot. It's not what you would expect to see if the buildings just collapsed in on themselves. Here's more of the footprints. World Trade Center 7, which again was not hit by a plane, just dropped right into its footprint. Alright, does this look like a building that is collapsing? Not quite. Looks more like a volcano erupting. Here's another thing. Hurricane Erin on 9/11. Not a lot of people know this one either. There was a hurricane off the coast of New York that morning, and it was headed straight for New York City. And it's called Hurricane Erin. Alright. no one can be told what happened on 9/11. You have to see it for yourself, right? And people can say, oh, blah, 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 conspiracy, conspiracy. Oh, the simple answer is the correct answer. Occam's razor, blah, blah, blah. Well, again, like Sherlock Holmes says, once you've eliminated all the improbable things, whatever remains, or once you've eliminated all the impossible outcomes or possibilities, then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And so that's the approach that Judy Wood is taking, and she's very educated to talk on the subject. Actually, let's go to Rational Wiki just real quick. This is usually like a Snopes type website where they just debunk all the things on the internet, and it's just interesting on this one because this is almost like the same as a Wikipedia. They're not even tearing into her. They're just basically like giving her credentials because she does know what she's talking about. Judy Wood, PhD, is a materials scientist and former assistant professor of mechanical engineering who believes the World Trade Center towers were destroyed by a directed energy weapon. She earned her doctorate in materials engineering science from the Department of Engineering, Science and Mechanics at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia. Her dissertation was on the topic of thermal stresses in biomaterial joints. Postdoctoral research associate at Virginia Tech. Taught mechanical engineering at Clemson University. And since 2006, she's been an independent researcher, lecturer, and author. And, I actually bought her book. I gave it to a friend, and so I don't have it anymore. I might just buy another copy just to have it, but it's a fantastic resource, and she goes through all the different things. There were cars throughout the city, far from the site of Ground Zero, that were melted, like straight up melted. And what's interesting is the metal was not melted, like the plastics were just melted, but the metal wasn't. It was just some of the weirdest things. It reminds me some of the strange fires that have happened in California over the last few years where, it's like almost like things just were incinerated by some sort of energy weapon or something. It just doesn't look like the result of a normal fire, right? Whole neighborhoods where the houses turned to, a flat powder, and then basically there's a tree in the front yard and it's still green, weird stuff. But going back to the slideshow, and Hurricane Erin basically was going straight for New York City, and you can see this little map down here that it was going, and it basically made not even a 90-degree turn, about like 110-degree turn. It jerked in almost the opposite direction. If you could conceive of how hard it is for a hurricane to do that, how much mass a hurricane has, it's like, imagine driving a semi-truck, right, at 80 miles an hour and trying to pull a 110-degree turn and just whipping that bitch around. Like, it's not a natural thing to happen, and it indicates that some sort of massive high-pressure system immediately formed over the city that basically forced the hurricane away. Otherwise, that hurricane was going to head straight into New York City. And there we're back at the beginning. Right, and Judy Wood has a lot of great stuff. This is a YouTube video, Breakthrough Energy Technology 2012, Dr. Judy Wood. I believe I watched this back when it came out in 2012. A good kind of explanation by herself about what her theory is. And she doesn't do a whole lot of speculation about who or what exactly the weapon or technology was, but she basically looks at the evidence and says, it's impossible that fire did this. It's impossible that explosive did this. But when we look at the evidence, which is the towers turned to powder, they didn't just collapse. Well, you have to just basically ask yourself what is capable of producing that outcome, because that is what happened. Anybody who says that you are crazy or I'm crazy or she's crazy for believing that, well, that's the evidence. All right, I'm not crazy for believing the evidence. It's Judy Wood, and basically going deep here, right? This was back from the slides that we were looking at back in the videos about Talpiot and Unit 8200 and sort of Israeli Mossad and this whole plan to kind of ensnare the elite of all countries and blackmail them. This is basically one of the slides from that. About the father of Israeli intelligence, Isser Harel, foretells to journalist Michael Evans, "My last question was, would terrorism ever come to America? Quote, you have the power to fight it, he said, but not the will. They have the will, but not the power. All of that will change in time. Yes, I fear it will come to New York and your tallest building, which is a symbol of your fertility." So I just kind of had to verify that, and so I tracked it down. I guess there was this evangelical organization, August 2004. They were interviewing Michael D. Evans, who's an evangelist, and all about leading all the Christians of America to go to war for Israel and whatnot. And yeah, basically straight up, this was the first question that they asked him. The question was, why do you say that America's story is contained within biblical prophecies? And yeah, basically Michael Evans is relating that on September 23rd, 1979, the founder of Israeli intelligence, of Mossad, told him that, basically in Islamic theology, the phallic symbol is very important. Your biggest phallic symbol is in New York City, and your tallest building will be the phallic symbol they will hit. Isser Harel prophesied that the tallest building in New York would be the first building hit by Islamic fundamentalists 21 years ago. So you can believe that this is all just prophesied by God, and this guy, the founder of Mossad, is just a prophet who is foretelling the future using his magical, Jewish Kabbalah mystical powers. Or there's a very other simple explanation, which was basically Israel and the Mossad were complicit in 9/11. And of course, that's hardly the only point of evidence to suggest that that is the case. Here's the Wikipedia of Isser Harel, again, spy master of the Intelligence and Security Services of Israel and director of the Mossad, essentially from its inception until 1963. Coincidentally, when we lost the last great president of America before Mr. Trump came around, and that was John F. Kennedy. And it's interesting, again, that Robert F. Kennedy, or essentially Robert F. Kennedy Jr., JFK's nephew, is now the one, along with Del Bigtree, who is continuing on the fight against vaccines and the pharmaceutical establishment. And, it's just, again, the battle lines haven't changed. It's just that people went to sleep and they got ostracized by inane, pointless terms: conspiracy theorist, anti-Semite, bigot, blah, 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 wacko, nutjob, prepper, right? All the things that are rational and true, they have ostracized through language. And it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work on me, and I'm not afraid of people calling me anti-Semitic or conspiracy theorist or whatnot, because I can defend my positions. Those of you who have been watching the channel long enough, basically, I'm not even going to say this. I'm not going to virtue signal, right? You guys judge me as you will. I don't care. I'm bringing the truth. So, the 5 dancing Israelis arrested on 9/11. For those of you who don't know, there were essentially 5 dancing Israelis dressed up as Arabs, dressed up as Muslims, and they were dancing, and they were driving around a van, right? And they were essentially pulled over by the NYPD, and they said a whole bunch of weird stuff like, "We are Israelis, we are not your problem. Your problems are our problems. The Palestinians are your problems." Right? Why are they saying this to the NYPD? And they're supposed to be just art students. In the conventional official story, they're just art students who were here in the United States, and they said to document the event, right? What exactly does that mean? All right, the things that, make a whole lot of sense once you understand the Mossad complicity in 9/11, but until you understand that fact, all of this is, some pretty wild coincidences, right? The coincidence theorists. And there were reports that the van that they were driving was seized, and the company was like United Moving Systems, right? It was a front company. And, it's not like it was just Israel, right? Again, George Bush, and, the top video on this channel is all about George Bush Sr. and how evil he was, right? Our entire government got co-opted when Kennedy was killed, right? George Bush Sr. was complicit in that, and that's why him and his progeny were instrumental in all these successive, major evil events that came down the line. And the Clintons themselves are even just like a bone spur that grew on that evil skeleton, right? They were the ones helping to funnel the drugs through Mena, Arkansas, that were coming up from the CIA, right? Air America and George Bush Sr. And that's how they essentially got ingratiated into the deep state criminal network. And that's why they're so invincible to the justice system, is because they have so many points of leverage, because they know all the other corrupt aspects of the government, and many of them are still in power. This brings us to Tiffany Fitzhenry and how this all connects back again to Hollywood, and between pharma and Hollywood, and basically the people who control the media and the people who control the banks, and it's all basically the same clique. And, this isn't about Jews, this is about evil, right? We can see, again, that the Orthodox Jews are fighting this with us. There are the children of God are all standing together, right? Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, whatever. It doesn't matter at a certain point because all you see is truth and basically helping people who need to be helped. It's that fundamental objective human ethics that we are instilled with, and it's only through trauma and programming that can be beaten out of us, and that is what the media does institutionally, and that is why Hollywood and the movies and the TV and all this programming is so essential. And Tiffany Fitzhenry has been an absolute bulwark against all of that craziness. She's a whistleblower from Hollywood, and she's just doing such amazing work. I basically get a notification every time she tweets because she's just smashing the control grid like a wrecking ball. And yeah, basically Hollywood is going down right now. Disney is being taken to the woodshed. Whole bunch of lawsuits. One of the kids, even from Stranger Things, basically is suing his former manager, right? This kid who was on Stranger Things, right? And there was a recently deceased, child star, and this is all getting blown wide open. Like the cabal, there's a reason that they're trying so hard to squelch the freedom to speak right now and the freedom to, medical freedom and right to bear arms, because they realize that they are so close to being defeated. The truth is just bursting out, and they can't hold it back anymore. Right, so their best bet is hoping everybody just gets black-pilled and, just wallows in their own, self-pity, because if people could see with clear eyes, they'd see that victory is near, my brothers. Right, Hollywood, in true Hollywood fashion, was just preparing to rehire Tyler Gresham. That's one of the agents who's being sued for sexual crimes. Serious question, why does Hollywood time and time again protect and promote pedophiles? She says, I reached out for comment to the agency, APA, and as well as the Office of the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Jackie Lacey, to ask why she declined to prosecute the agent, Tyler Gresham. Neither has returned comment. And so she goes on, if the studio is surrounding children with pedophiles, if the agents are aiding and abetting crimes, if the sheriffs and police are turning a blind eye, if the DA declines to prosecute, what do you have? You have a system that needs to be brought down to the studs. To all who are part of this child abuse system, you will fall. And you will fall hard. If I had a couple of dragons, you'd already be smoldering ash. But I don't, so I'll do it with words. The pen is mightier than the sword after all. Don't say you weren't warned. And yeah, basically, that's just great. Steve-O of Jackass, his account was hacked recently, and somebody posted out a bunch of things that made a whole bunch of people squirm. This is one of the things that was posted, essentially showing how CNN is not exactly very diverse. You'd think for a company that's always rambling on about diversity that they'd have a little bit of diversity, but it seems basically their entire company, especially at the high-level management, is essentially people who claim to be Jewish, right? I don't consider them Jews because they don't have ethics. I think the true Jews are the children of God. The true Jews abide by God's law. And there's some weird stuff in the Torah, for sure. But, basically, fundamental human ethics are a part of the true Jews, and I have no quarrel with them. Again, they're standing with us in this fight. It's the big guys. It's the ones that are the international, cosmopolitan, billionaires and communist-minded people who are just basically trying to subvert all that is good and right in the world so that they can take control. I'm not going to play games anymore and dance around the bush, right? These people are evil. They're evil to the bone, and I'm at war with them. And I'm locked and stocked and ready to rock for this war. And again, we're close enough to the end game at this point that, they're already censoring everybody anyway, right? This video will probably get more views on BitChute than on YouTube. They'll probably censor this one to the max, but that's why, if you find any of this to be important, I encourage you to share it, give it a like, give it a comment. But, share the message, and help it grow organically, because the algorithm is not doing it, right? And so just, reinforcing the point that basically the true Jews are on our side. They're right there standing with us, just like in the slides before. Jeremy Roth-Kushel, Jewish, right? Basically, some of the people that have exposed the control grid the most are on the children of God, right? They're the good Jews, and those are my brothers and sisters. And again, I got Jews in my family that I love to the end of the earth. This isn't about religion. This isn't about ethnicity. This is about evil entrenched in high levels and positions of power in this government and this society. And I'm done with it. And it's time to take it down, right? And here they're talking about the business of anti-Semitism here at Torah Jews. And this is a great article. I'll kind of, basically I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to go down to the end because I thought that this was just a perfect encapsulation of what I'm trying to say, and just shows that we're lockstep in this fight, and we're standing arm to arm. And the more that we can just realize that and stand in that solidarity, is the more that they will not just be sweating and squirming in their boots, but they will be running for the hills, because they'll realize they have nothing left. And the last bastion of the cabal, the Pharmaceutical Empire, will collapse like like a house of cards, right? A big old castle that turned out to be just a balsa wood front and a frame with nothing behind it, right? So here I'll leave you guys with this quote from the Torah Jews. Just as our forefathers throughout the long years of our exile wished only to unassumingly serve God, so this is our wish. We don't wish to be headlines on the world's newspapers or top stories on the evening news, and we don't wish to be associated in any way, shape, or form with the state of Israel and their yes-men. This is the sentiment of the hundreds of thousands of anti-Zionist Jews throughout the world. To Israel, leave us alone. And that's my video today. Much love to all of you. May God bless you who are standing in truth against this evil empire, and victory is near. Never forget that. Never let the bastards get you down. Right? Do not give in to evil, but proceed evermore boldly against it. As Ludwig von Mises said, another good Jew, great Jew, in fact. So yeah, that's it. Hope you guys having a great day, great week, and a great lifetime. Leave a comment down below if you enjoyed it, and share the video. Cheers.
Ah.